Hello, everybody. We are the No Respect Gamers here for another GameFAQs contest. This time it's going to be the GameFAQs Best Year in Gaming contest. Basically, the point of this contest is we're going to look at the years 1985 through 2016. We're going to look at the games that came out each year and vote on which year had the best games come out. We're also going to have 4 wildcard years from before 1985, and those will be their own little play-in round, and this will combine to be a 36 entry bracket to determine the best year for gaming. I am Shox. Joining me for this analysis today is Dabu and Peter. Dabu, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, GameFAQs. I'm Lord of Dabu. Many of you may already know me from my success on the boards in previous contests. I have a doctorate in applied mathematics. I'm looking forward to using it to analyze this contest.
It's nice to have you on the show. Peter, would you like to talk about yourself a little bit?
I would. Most people on GamesFAQ will remember me from the 2004 board invasion of the Warcraft 3, the Frozen Throne board.
We don't talk about that on here.
We don't talk about that on here. So we're going to get right into it. First year, 1985.
Yep, 1985 is indeed the first year of this contest. A couple key games that came out that year, and I don't know if I said this, we're looking at the North American release dates. So that's really important to remember because that's going to make a huge difference with some of these years. So I don't know what you guys think about 1985. Looking at some of these games that came out, Super Mario Brothers is probably the top of the list. I mean, it started the whole Mario genre. Arguably, I guess you could say Donkey Kong did, but you know what I mean.
Mario genre? What does that even mean?
You know, the
platforms?
Mario series, you know what I mean.
Oh, okay. I mean, sure.
So
no, Super Mario Bros. Is one of the most important releases ever in North America. So, in like the grand scheme of how important these games are, or how important these years are, 1985 is certainly up there. But in terms of how GameFAQs views their important years, I don't think 1985 is a strong contender.
yeah, so I feel like the 80s as a whole are going to be, they're not going to be favorites. They're going to be underdogs. And I guess this is a question for you guys, is what you think. How do you think people are going to vote? Are they going to look at their favorite game and vote for that year? Like, if it's a contest between 2 years, are they just going to look for their favorite game between those two and vote for that year? You think they're going to look at the year as a whole and see, like, how many strong games for that year came out? What do you guys think? What do you think, Peter?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. A lot of this contest comes down to psychology. You know, you're not necessarily picking which year objectively had the best games. You're trying to pick which year other people will think had the best games. So, for example, in the last Best Game Ever contest, most of us would have picked something reasonable like, you know, Pokemon or Super Mario 64 or Kid Icarus, but Undertale was the winner. Undertale? I'll tell you why Undertale won. It's because they mobilized the internet. Well, in the Best Year Ever contest, you can't mobilize the internet for a year. There's no community that supports just a single year in particular. Therefore, I think this will be the purest competition that we've had on GamesFAQ for several years.
I like that.
I'm really looking forward to it, honestly. I sort of glanced through the board and I saw some lukewarm reception to it, but I think its purity is going to be something that's unrivaled. I mean, even back in the 2002 contests, they had to deal with the internet at large coming and invading and ruining the entire contest.
Yeah, definitely. And some of these years, they're really hard to compare. I think, I mean, since we're in 1985 right now, does anybody really think this has a chance to win at all? I think Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, which both came out in that year, I think they're both really good games. But are they strong enough to carry that year to the...
I don't think it can win the whole thing, but I think it might win against some certain other choice years. Right? I mean, because it's going to be a bracket. It's one-on-one match. So we don't know what the bracket is yet. So I realize that we're kind of just talking about who's going to win the whole thing, which will be 1998, and we'll get to that in a minute. But in terms of like just winning like individual matches, I mean, it really depends on where 85 is placed.
And that's very true. I mean, seeding definitely matters here, and it's interesting to see how they're going to do that. And of course, I think it could be a wild card, which is one of the games or one of the years before 1985, and it's just
I don't even know why they're doing that, honestly.
yeah, I don't think any of those have a chance, but we'll talk about that later, or in another episode, depending on how long this one runs. So we can continue on into '86, which had a couple big games come out, Bubble Bobble and Tetris, for the PC.
Bubble Bobble.
And those are great games, but again, if you compare it to later years, it might win a round or two, but does anybody really see it realistically?
86 is like last place. Let's just move on.
Yeah. Okay,
Like honestly, I just don't think 86 has any chance.
Okay.
I mean, at least 87 has Legend of Zelda, which is kind of nice.
87 is probably the first really strong year we're going to look at. Zelda, Metroid, Contra, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, those are all really, really good games even today. I understand, Metroid hasn't aged very well, but it was the first game in the Metroid series. You guys think that has a chance of going far? 1987?
87, no, but I think it would beat 86 and 85.
So you say 87 is going to be 86 and 85. Do you think that's what we're going to see as we go on? The newer years are always going to beat the older years, or are we going to hit like a cap?
No, I already established that 1998 was going to win the whole contest.
I'm just trying to get.
Well, I didn't establish it. I made that claim, but it's certainly not going to be just that the newer games are always going to beat older games, or newer years are going to beat older years. The thing you have to realize about GameFAQs is that they live in the 90s. Like on GameFAQs, it still is 1998. That's like the year right now. Even though the site came out after 1998, that's the year everyone's considering. If you look at like any poll about like cell phones or playing online games, it's like they're still living in the past.
So then I have to ask, I hate to jump the gun here, but my eyes darted straight to the year 2015 when Undertale was released. Do we have a situation on our hands?
It really depends on how they're actually going to present it on the polls. Like, is it just going to be I mean, they're going to be pictures, right? Is it just going to be a picture of a collection of games from each year? Because it's true, if there's an Undertale character, I think the internet might care, but I don't think they'll care that much. And I think since it's GameFAQs users making the pictures, or at least it usually is, I think they won't put Undertale characters on it just to prevent other people from coming to the website. That's my opinion.
I think also, after Undertale spiraled out of control and won, I think other internet communities are probably jealous, right? Because Undertale, compared to other games at large, is not a popular game. It's played, but it's not played nearly as much as a game like League of Legends or CS:GO or Dota or whatever. If any of those communities were to mobilize, it'd be all over.
Now, let's not forget, gentlemen, Melee took second in that Best Game Ever contest. So they could easily mobilize their forces as well and get a ton of votes for 2001, which also has some really good games alongside it. So,
but the thing is, on the poll, it's just you're going to be voting for the year. I don't know. I feel like people won't care nearly as much.
I think you're arguing that presentation is important, which I think everybody would completely agree with. I do want to add one more thing. We're comparing this to the Best Game Ever contest, which is completely fine. If you recall, in the Best Game Ever contest, they had no competitive games. There was no League of Legends, no Overwatch, no Counter-Strike. Those are all being included.
StarCraft.
Well, but StarCraft is primarily known for its single player. And these are all...
Same.
Question mark.
These are all being included, at least from what I can tell, they are including these in competitive games. So I think that's going to be a factor as well. So back to the topic at hand. We're in 87 right now. It looks like we think 87 could be 86 and 85. I don't want to just compare year by year, but I think 87's stronger than what we've seen so far. You'd agree with that, right?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and save us some time. We're going to skip right to the first year that matters at all, which is 1991.
That's not true, though.
What about 90?
Yeah, 90's strong.
90 is Mario 3.
Yeah, Mario 3 is a great game. 89 and 88 probably not going to do well. I mean, 88 has Zelda 2, which is a great game, but people hate it. It has Mario 2, which is the same great game, people hate it. 89, it has DuckTales.
Woo!
But I mean, yeah, I think 90 is probably the first. Well, I said that about 87. I think.
No, 90 is garbage.
I mean, Final Fantasy 1, Mario 3, and Secret of Monkey Island are all loved games.
Okay, no one on GameFAQs cares about Secret of Monkey Island. As
Really?
fantastic as the game is, they don't care about it.
Did they only play RPGs in like their mother's basement or something?
Yeah, that's pretty much all they played.
Really?
They played Square games and they played Nintendo games.
All right, so I
That's
mean,
about it.
85 through 90 is basically purely NES games. So yeah, let's go on to 91. We have Final Fantasy 4 or 2, whichever you want to call it. Mario World.
Well, since we're going by U.S. release dates, I think we have to call it 2.
That's very true. Street Fighter 2 as well. Sonic 1. There's some really good games there. I have that as a contender. What do you guys think?
That's an incredible year. I mean, the Simpsons arcade game was, for me, other than, well, I guess Turtles in Time was a big one for me in my youth, but Simpsons was number 2. I played Civilization. I played Street Fighter 2. Sonic, I mean, this is the first year where I see it jam-packed full of games that made a big impression on me as a child. This is the first year where I'm thinking this year has the potential to go the distance.
Yeah, I think it would be, for sure, anything before this year. And I think it would be competitive with a lot of the things in the late 2000s also.
I can agree with that. I mean, I was born in 91, so I'd be really happy to see it win. I don't know if it would win, but I think it has a chance to compete very well. There's some
That's
really...
actually a voting factor, and that's just ridiculous. You think people are going to vote for the year they were born in?
I mean, most people on GameFAQs were born in the 70s, so no.
There are wild cards.
That's true. In that case, the wild card might win. So yeah, 91, very strong year. I guess we can move on to 92. Link to the Past is obviously an all-time great, but I don't know. Like, do you see anything else that... So what I'm looking for here, and maybe this is a good talking point, what are you looking for in each year? I'm looking for like a game or two that's top of the charts, and then a ton of really strong games for depth.
Okay, this is what I'm looking at when I look at a year. I want to see the first game and go, oh. I want to see the second game and go, oh. And then the third game is, oh. And it builds and builds, and then I get towards the end of that year, and I just explode because I see something massive. Like in this case, Wolfenstein 3D. Are you kidding me? That's the first-person shooter. And then after that, it's just you just kind of sit back and take it all in and think like, oh, what a great year that was. Oh.
Well, how much of a impact do you think consoles are? Like, for instance, 91 had the release of the Super Nintendo, which was huge. Do you think that's actually a factor?
I think that's very important because Super Nintendo's regarded by many as the best console ever. So that's why I think all those games, or all those years from 85 to 90 are kind of just not going to last very long. But starting with 91, we're starting to get to the meat of the years, the really good years.
Well, but I
Or
mean, like in the
textured
actual
soy protein for the vegans out there.
they could have an actual SNES controller, because that's the year that SNES came out. And I think, aside from the games, just knowing that that's when the console came out, is also makes it a big year, right? Because when you're talking about best years in gaming, you're not just talking about the games, right? You're also talking about what happened in the gaming communities. And the Super Nintendo being released is huge for a lot of people.
Oh, definitely. And like I said, that's going to loop back to the presentation. It's all going to be about how they present it. I mean, we're humans. We're superficial. We're going to take a look at the pictures that are there, and they'll make up our minds for us, right?
Well, apparently it's also going to have descriptions under each thing. I can't imagine anyone reading them before they vote, but apparently that's what's going to happen.
So I think 92, for me, it has a lot of big games. Obviously, Link to the Past is really big. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, for me, that was the biggest Sonic game. Super Mario Kart was my first racing simulator. And Wolfenstein, of course, is really big. But for some reason, I feel like that year doesn't really have a chance. I feel like among the GamesFAQ community, only Zelda is gonna garner any love, and it's not the most popular Zelda. Even I mean, it
One of
is.
the most popular.
Yeah, it's not Ocarina of Time though, right?
No, of course not, but it's
Not
number
to
2.
us, but there's some people that. Well, I don't know if I'd say it's number 2, but there's some people that would put Link to the Past first. And that kind of takes
So
us.
how much do you think the speedrunning community helps these older games? The fact that they do all this stuff on Twitch and stuff.
I mean, we had this same conversation for the best game ever contest, if you recall, and we thought Super Metroid was going to do really well because of that. I don't remember Super Metroid.
And it exceeded everyone's expectations except ours.
Who
We
did-
called that one much better than anyone else on the board.
That's true, but I thought it would get even more of a boost from that. So I'm not sure if it really matters that much.
Speaking of Super Metroid, I think we should jump straight to 94 because 93 is garbage.
Hold on, I want to talk about 93 a bit. It's headlined by Link's Awakening.
There's nothing to talk about in 93.
It's headlined by Link's Awakening, which isn't strong at all. It's not a very strong year, but are we going to be looking
Okay,
at...
so let's move on to 94.
I want to look at like
Alright.
some of the like arcade games because that's when NBA Jam came out. You think people will care about that at all? Like arcades were pretty big,
No,
but
no.
arcades were pretty big.
94.
Hold on, let me talk. Arcades were pretty big in the 90s. You'd think people would be a little nostalgic.
How would
about
you
that.
know? You were only alive for like half of the 90s.
'Cause I can Google, and I've watched.
Listen,
what
I was actually around and functioning at the time. People don't care. Trust me. I mean, you said what? You were born in 91? So in 93, you would have been 2 years old. You didn't even have a functioning memory then.
You couldn't even reach the controls.
Can we agree that 93 would be anything from 85 to 90?
No,
Well, 85
actually, I
to
doubt it.
No, I don't think it would beat 1990.
85 to 89.
No,
I'm not
I
even
think.
convinced it beats 87. Honestly.
Yeah, I think 87 would probably beat 93.
Maybe we'll get to see that. So yeah, 94. I think it's also a really strong contender. You got Final Fantasy 3, Super Metroid, DKC 1, Mega Man X is a really strong game. What do you guys think?
I see the first two, Final Fantasy 3 and then Super Metroid, and I think this year could win everything. But then I see the rest of the games on the list, and I mean, Donkey Kong Country is really big too, but I don't know. I don't think those three can really carry it. But I mean, I think it'll definitely win its first or second round. But I don't know if it can go the distance.
I don't either. I think 92 is a stronger year.
Man, I just...
And 91.
You think
also.
92 is stronger than 94? I just don't know about that. Like, I think Final Fantasy VI would single-handedly carry 94 to a win over 92.
It's possible, but see,
I don't
okay,
think, I mean, single-handedly, I mean, Link to the Past is much higher regarded on GameFAQs than Final Fantasy 3. Like, significantly.
I don't know. I guess, but it's also backed by Super Metroid, which I guess doesn't matter that much. Mega Man X, didn't it pull off some wins in the Best Game Ever contest?
Yeah, I mean, all these games are like, it's a quality year. So it really depends on how people are going to look at this and vote. Right? So if you see a list of these games and a list of those games, I don't know, it really depends on the presentation.
you know, Super
I can
Mario
see
Kart in
91.
92. That's actually a big game too. 92 is pretty solid. You know,
Yeah,
if
this is
94
tough.
went deep, I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't know. I don't think it can go all the way. But I think based on how GameSpec users will vote, I do think 94 could be our strongest year so far. It could be, for sure.
The issue I have with it is that it's mostly platformers. There's like one really solid RPG, but then the rest is platformers, which they don't really care about. Which is understandable, because you don't really go to a website for text guides for a platformer. I mean, what's it gonna say? Press jump here. I mean, I can't even believe some of these games have guides.
Not
I mean,
necessarily.
I guess I can understand Super Metroid, but
Not necessarily for Metroid and DKC 1. You might go for the secrets and whatnot.
that's true. That's true. That's fair.
The rest of them, I mean, yeah, probably not. Any last thoughts on 94 before we get into 95?
95.
I have a
is
thought
the-
on 95.
I mean, 95 is arguably the best game ever made. But there's not a whole lot
But
besides that.
yeah, that's the problem. If Chrono Trigger came out in 96 or in 94, then I think one of those years would probably win everything. But Chrono Trigger has the unfortunate situation of being sandwiched between two amazing years. Doesn't have that much support. Like, I mean, Yoshi's Island was a great game. Everyone loved it. Same with Donkey Kong Country 2. But neither of those is like, you know, a Hall of Fame top GamesFAQ contender type game. Same with Earthbound. Like, these are a lot of good games, but they're not legendary games that GamesFAQ users are going to mobilize for.
Absolutely, and I want to know, since Dabu brought up consoles earlier, we're starting to come into the era of PC gaming. Command & Conquer came out in 95. I don't know how much it's going to have an impact on voting, but I think it's going to be enough to be voted.
PC games are usually the least popular on this website.
Maybe.
Because it's a console-dominated website. I don't think any of the PC games that came out in '95 are really going to make a big difference.
I think
Especially not Command & Conquer.
I mean, PC gamers generally don't need guides because we're very good at games.
That's true.
Shots
Yeah,
fired.
all of us have GameFAQs accounts. Inexplicably.
I actually lost my password, and I don't remember which email address I used for it. So I might have lost my account. I think it had like 2,000 karma by this point. 3,000. Way more than Lord of Dabu, that's for sure.
That's true, way more.
We're starting to get into the really good years, though. 96. This is a championship contender.
I don't know, I feel like we should say more about 95.
Move on. It's
what
in the
more is there to
past.
say? I mean, Chrono Trigger is, like I said, arguably the best.
I mean,
game of
I
all
think
time.
95 is a top 4 year.
No.
Honestly,
You don't think so?
I think 94.
That's only
is-
because you love Earthbound, but no one else loves Earthbound.
I don't love Earthbound.
That's like your top 3 favorite games ever. It's
No.
Earthbound, Secret of Monkey Island, and Lagoon. I know you.
Lagoon's up there, but I don't know what the others.
I think 94 beats 95 straight up.
I agree.
Oh, interesting.
And these are conversations that we can have later when the bracket comes out. We will be doing more podcasts, doing a very in-depth analysis year by year. But for now, we're just doing a general outlook of each year. We don't have a whole lot of info yet as far as...
So what's the consensus on the top year so far? Is it 94? Or is it
Yeah.
91, 92?
I'd say 90... it's between 91,
It's
92,
tough. These
and 94.
90s are all really hard. I mean, 93 is obviously out, but the others, I mean, I think all of the 90s games will win their match unless they're against another 90s here.
And that's going to be a big factor. If they go up against each other in the first round, that would eliminate some of the really good years. I think it's between 91, 92, and 94. I'd put 94, I think, as the top right now. I guess I have more faith in Final Fantasy 3 than you guys do, maybe. Because what would you guys say is the top year so far?
I don't know. I think Chrono Trigger is huge, but I also think the release of the Super Nintendo is huge. So I think it depends on exactly how it's presented. If console release dates are being taken into consideration, I think 91's a lot stronger.
I think that's fair. So 96, we're getting into the release of the Nintendo 64.
96 is the first bomb gets dropped. These next 3 years, each one is like a huge bomb gets dropped. These are incredible years.
The thing about 96 that's kind of weird though is I don't see a whole lot of, like, obviously Mario 64 and Mario RPG are both very popular and beloved games. Resident Evil 1 as well. Do you see a whole lot of meat in that year though? I see good games but not great, you know?
I see a decent amount of textured soy protein in this year. I mean, Duke Nukem was pretty fun. I remember enjoying that as a child.
That's not a factor in this contest.
No. But I feel like, you know, even looking back at 94 with the Final Fantasy III plus Super Metroid, even considering that year, I think 96 has the best 1-2 punch so far in Mario 64 and Mario RPG. Those two games are just insane.
How far did Mario RPG make it? Like to the Final Four, right?
Yeah, it went really far.
So that's gonna pull a lot of weight on this website.
Plus, if you're subscribing to the Lord of Dabu theory that the release of a console in a particular year should influence that year, then 96, hands down,
But
is the
94
strongest
had
year
the
so far.
PlayStation also.
So what do you think wins between 96 and 91? If we're looking at consoles as well,
96.
you think a 64 pulls that much weight?
I mean, you got to look at the average people who are going to be voting in this competition. Most of them, they're going to see these late 90s years as these are like, you know, the Valhalla of the video game years. The earlier ones are like they have historical significance and we like the games, but the late 90s, those are the ones we really grew up with and like formed strong emotional bonds to.
I think that's fair. And I also want to add Crash Bandicoot, I think is actually getting remade. I don't know how popular that game is on GameFAQs, but it's a pretty popular
It's
game.
not.
It's not at all, really?
No, of course not.
Because it has a ton of secrets and stuff. I thought that would be somewhat popular.
It needs to be either Zelda or Final Fantasy.
No, you're just discussing like games that can carry their year, though. I'm looking at good depth, you know. I think Crash Bandicoot could be that good depth for a year. But we can move on to 97. If you're looking at these years as like a mountain, I would say we're starting to reach the peak. Because 97, it's like a 95. It has a game you could argue is the best game of all time in Final Fantasy VII. Has a lot of really good games around it. Symphony of the Night, GoldenEye, Mario Kart, Star Fox. Best year so far? What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely.
I think 97 is going to get number 2 in the contest, depending on how it's positioned in the bracket.
I mean, it has something that appeals to everyone. It's got the best RPG ever in Final Fantasy VII. It's got the best racing simulator in Mario Kart 64. It's got the best flight simulator in Star Fox 64. It's got one of the best first-person shooters with GoldenEye. This year is going places. Turok Dinosaur Hunter? Are you kidding me? You get to shoot dinosaurs with a bow and arrow.
What has traditionally won between Final Fantasy VII and Chrono Trigger in the best game ever contest?
Final Fantasy 7.
Has it? Okay. Yeah, I could see that. I don't know.
Although its popularity is declining significantly. Like, Chrono Trigger actually looked like it was going to win the best game ever last time until the internet got involved.
Chrono Trigger is
They have the
aged.
strongest performance each round.
Chrono Trigger, like a lot of those Super Nintendo games, just aged really well. So maybe that could have a big part in it. So you think 97 beats 96 that easily?
Yes, absolutely.
Because you've brought up, the consoles, and I would think the Nintendo 64 would help a lot.
It
with
does,
96.
that doesn't even matter when it comes to 97's releases. These are all huge releases.
I mean, 97 is enormous. And then for me personally, 98 is the year. I don't know.
98 is going to win first place. There's no doubt in my mind. You can't even argue with that. So
I mean, this year is
99.
ridiculous.
Let's start talking about 99.
We need to talk about 98 a little bit. So it has that, we've discussed what each year needs to have. It has that best game ever quality with Ocarina of Time. It has a lot of really good games behind it with StarCraft, Pokemon, FFT. Half-Life isn't left at all on this website, so I'm going to leave that one.
Metal Gear Solid is huge as well.
Metal Gear Solid's in there.
Parasite Eve.
What else really
I
sticks
mean, I
out?
think someone on this podcast has written a blog about one of these games.
I like Xenogears, but that doesn't stick out to me on GameFAQs. Is that game really that loved on here? Didn't it lose?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Didn't it lose first round in the contest? To Star Wars or something?
Yeah, it did. But even so,
I mean, I think you might be overestimating.
I think it just helps.
I see 3 or 4 really, really, really good games, just like I have seen that in other years. But I don't know. I don't see a whole lot of other games besides that. A whole lot of really good games besides that.
Do you really think 98 is not going to win the whole contest?
I'm just not as set on that as you are.
I don't know. I think if it were up to me, I would pick 98. But for GameFAQs at large, who they're going to vote for, I really think 97 could beat 98. I don't think it's a clear-cut deal either way.
I mean, 98 just doesn't have a classic Final Fantasy. I don't know if you could throw in FFT with like a 7 or a 6, right?
Yeah, but who cares? It's got Ocarina, it's got Pokemon, which is the most popular series on the website now.
Well, if it's the most
Has Metal
popular
Gear
series on the
Solid.
website now, those people are probably visiting the site because they played later versions like Pokemon Rainbow Crystal or whatever, right? This is Red and Blue.
Yeah, but Red and Blue did really well in the Best Game Ever contest, though. So I don't know.
As they should. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that 98 or 97 is going to win. At least for the years we've looked at so far.
Yeah, I'd throw those in the top two. I think there's competitors later on. We'll jump into 99. Nothing really sticks out to me here, though. I mean, Final Fantasy VIII and Smash Brothers are all good. Suikoden 2.
Release to the Dreamcast.
Suikoden 2 is obviously a good game. But
Star Ocean 2, that's like one of the best PlayStation RPGs.
Do you really think this could be? I mean, let's establish 97, 98 as the top tier. Do you think 99
Yeah,
can compete with that?
For the rest of this podcast, we should be talking about which game or which years are going to get third through the rest.
I don't think 99 has that power.
It's not a third place finisher, I don't think.
Now, 2000 is, in my opinion, 2000 could compete with those 97, 98. And let me tell you why. It has Majora's Mask, which is really loved by a lot of people. Pokemon Gold and Silver were improvements on Red and
It's
Blue.
also really hated by a lot of people.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't want to repeat myself from the last podcast that you guys graciously allowed me on, but Majora's Mask is very polarizing in the Zelda community.
I like all these games from 2000 are. Look at this.
And that's why I think it has a chance.
Yeah, Chrono Cross,
if they get
Perfect
the
Dark.
support. I mean, Chrono Cross is
Yeah.
loved in this community, though.
But it's also a very polarizing game. A lot of people don't like it.
But that's
No
why
Chrono
I think
Trigger.
it could have a chance, because they could rally around their support for it. I mean, and we also have our first competitive game here, Counter Strike, which was not in the other contest. You think,
Maybe you missed 1998, which had a very competitive game in it.
you mean
In
the
fact,
game?
multiple competitive
Panzer
games.
Dragoon Saga.
You remember?
Yeah, that one.
You mean the game known for Kerrigan and Raynor?
Yeah, that one.
I could see it holding
I also
its
missed
own.
Pokemon Red Blue. That's a very competitive game.
I could see 2000 holding its own at the very least. There's games, and it just kind of depends on who's voting on this, because like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was loved by a lot of people on PlayStation, but you know, if they're not the people
Yeah,
voting on this,
we know.
And on Nintendo 64, it's got the trademark blue cartridge.
I never played the 64 one. I think the PlayStation was better because it had more songs, right? I don't know, but
No.
I think this is a dark horse here.
Yeah, so how would you guys place this against 1995, for instance? That's in the bracket, 2000 versus 95. Who do you take?
I mean, I feel like
Or
Ken
94, since
Chrono.
that's the one you guys like so much.
Oh, okay.
We're looking at.
I was going to
94.
say 95 didn't have a chance. 94, I might give it to 94. We didn't even talk about, in my opinion, the best game from the year 2000, which is Mario Tennis, which is super, super fun. I still love playing Mario Tennis now.
When did the Game Boy Mario Tennis come out? Because that one was good too, but I don't even remember.
I mean, speaking of the Virtual Boy, why are there no Virtual Boy games on this list?
That's a good question.
What list are you guys
overlooked.
looking
Yeah, I don't know
at?
what list you're talking about. I'm just pulling up game. Like I looked up all the years, but we're reaching the halfway point, and I think it might be better to cut it off for now, because it takes a lot of thought to.
That's what she said.
Takes a lot of thought looking into these years. As far as your question, Mr. Dabu, I think 94 and 2000, I think that would be a really good fight, and I think it could go either way. I think 2000 beats 95, though. I don't think Chrono Trigger has that much power. And I honestly think that 2000, I'm not saying it would beat 97 or 98. I think it would be able to hold its own, though. I think it would compete pretty well. Maybe like 40-60.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, I could see that. Maybe not against 1988, but I could see it against. Well, I don't know. I just don't think it's as strong as year as you think it is, I guess. Although I do think it's stronger than a lot of the earlier years that we talked about.
So, gentlemen,
I'd like to talk about these wild card years a little bit. What do you think about that?
so it's
Like, what's
before-
even a contender for those?
I wasn't alive back then. How the hell would I know? I'm not like 45 years old like you are, Lord of Dabu.
So one of the years is going to be when Galaga came out. Does anybody know when that was?
Like 1920 or something? I don't know.
I don't think it came out during
It
the
was
Great
1981.
Depression or during the Roaring Twenties. 1981. I think that's
It was
going to be
81.
on there. So 81 is going to be a wild card year. I'm going to establish that right now.
I don't even get why we're having these wild card years. Like, they're not going to do well.
Space Invaders.
Is it to make it how many years are there?
There's
it's-
32 with this list, so this is going to make it 36. But these 4 wild card
Well,
years are going to play in.
Yeah, that's why I don't get it. Why not just have a 32?
because
yeah, that makes no sense. Why would they change it to not be 32? 32 is perfect.
I agree, but they're going to make them a play-in round somehow. So somebody's going to be getting buys, which will be another topic when we figure out who that is. I wanted to say Space Invaders came out in 1978. I think that could be another year. I mean, those are some of the best games I can think of pre-85. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how the bracket's going to look with 36 games. Like, is it going to be 4 divisions with 9 games, and they're going to have like 3 years per round? I'm pretty sure it said 1-on-1, right?
Yeah, it is. It's 1v1.
I think my definite pick for a wild card year, you have to go pretty far back for this one. But if you go all the way back to around 3000 BCE in China, they invented this game called Go, also known as Weiqi and Batuk. That's got to be one of the best games of all time. I don't know if the demographic on GamesFAQ really suits the game of Go, but I think it's got more love out there than you might expect. And I feel like one of the controversies with this game is going to be nailing down the exact year that it was invented, because it was 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. But if there are suitable records found, then I think we could see this year do more than you might have expected at first.
So we have our wildcard years established as 87, or I'm sorry, 70, what was it, 77, 81, 3000 BC. Do we have a fourth one?
I mean, it's 2017 on this list.
I think it has to be before 85, but that would be, I mean, why not have it on here? There's been some good games that have come out this year.
It's true, there have. I don't know, I think it should be. I think it's a better contender than the earlier years.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Alright, so let's assume that there's 4 divisions, so there has to be 4 1 seeds. And let's assume that of the games we talked about, 2 of them are going to get 1 seeds. Who do you give them to? 97, 98?
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
I think they should be on like opposite sides of the bracket. I think that would be a nice finals. What would you give the 2 seeds to?
2000 and 1994.
Are you in agreement with that?
He would disagree with me. He'd put 96 ahead of 2000.
Oh, 96 and 2000? That's a tough one. I mean, 96 definitely has the stronger heavy hitters with the Mario 64 and Mario RPG, but 2000 has a lot of good games. I could go either way.
And I would agree with you. 2000 has the problem of it has a ton of really, really great games, but no superstars. And that could hurt it or help it, depending on how these people are voting. Because if you just, like, say we put a bunch of pictures up for each year, you look at 2000, you're going to have Zelda, you're going to have Link out there, you're going to have some Pokemon, you're going to have some Final Fantasy, you're going to have, like, a Chrono Cross character, you're going to have the guy from Counter-Strike, the classic guy with the gun, you're going to have Tony Hawk on there, you're going to have a ton of really cool stuff. Mario Tennis, which I
Do you
love.
think the vast majority of people in GameFAQs have ever played a competitive game before? I'm just curious.
I mean, Counter Strike isn't only competitive though. You could easily have played it casually. That's what a lot of people did.
Fair enough.
Where's Ricochet in this? Everyone's favorite Half-Life mod. We'll have to
Well, I
find out
mean,
that year.
when you have a year, people are going to associate their own things with that year. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how people actually go about voting. Or if people even vote. I mean, I'm looking at the GameFAQs poll right now. There's barely any votes in it.
Oh, I've got it. The year 2000, Ricochet was released. The Half-Life
Oh,
mod.
there you go.
There you go.
That tips it for me.
That tips the
Ricochet
scales.
is an amazing game. It is like the just the perfect embodiment of the classic phrase, takes a minute to learn, a lifetime to master.
So I would put, this is all my opinion, I'd put 94 and 2000 as the 2 seeds, and then 96 and 95 as the 3 seeds. And then after that, you could put 91 as a 4 seed, but who really cares beyond that?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it's spread out. I'm hoping it's seeded and not just like in order. I'm pretty sure it'll be seeded though.
Oh, if it's in order, that ruins like the entire competition.
I just don't know how, I guess, SB Allen is going to go about seeding them.
I assume he listens to our podcast.
Yeah, I think CJC.
That's true. You might listen to our podcast. We can just give him all the seeds.
I think CJC.
We basically did all of his work for him.
I think CJC will make the right decisions when it comes to it. So we're at 2000, which is a pretty good stopping point because we have some great years still to go over. It sounds like the favorites so far are 98 and 97. Any closing thoughts, men?
Well, I don't want to tantalize our beloved listeners too much, but 2001 is a big year, so stay tuned for the next part. Whew! I'm looking down this list, I'm thinking, man, I'm not so sure about 98 anymore.
At some point, you're going to have to tell me what list you're talking about.
Oh. Well, I'm looking at the list of notable games released 1985 to 2016 version 1 for the April 2017 Best Year contest,
Hold on,
posted
what
by
should
Now
we
It's
say?
Angel Time.
All right, so I guess we should take a little bit closer look at the board, see what everyone's saying. There's a lot of great topics on the board right now. What constitutes a sandwich?
All right, and I think on that note, we are going to end this podcast.
Power Rangers reviews are rolling in.
Well, thanks to all of my adoring fans for joining us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks so much. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about in the future in the comments. Please subscribe.
And if you'd like to be a guest on the next episode of our podcast, please leave your name and contact information, and we will randomly select one person to join us on the next episode. It could be you, but only
not gonna be
if you
random.
enter. Yeah, it will not be random. We'll be picking our favorite, or no one if we don't like you.
Yeah, be sure to explain why you belong on our show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching. Please
You're
subscribe.
not watching, you're listening.
Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and let us know what you want us to talk about. Have a great day or night.